Yes, sir. All right, this evening I want to confirm you can see on your screen the slideshow or the presentation, COVID-19 pandemic update.
Yes, sir, I see.
Yep.
Okay, and I want to confirm that it appears that we are broadcasting live on Facebook as well as the webinar, and we'll have it recorded in both places. Thank you. Members of the board, thank you for your technological elite. Member of the public and community, thank you for joining as well. All right. This evening, together with Dr. Schrader, the Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Ryan, the Assistant Sup for Teaching and Learning, Dr. Colleen, the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, we're going to give the board and community an update on the pandemic, preparations, our 4 priorities, and Dr. Ryan will be spending some time with Dr. Colleen on the e-learning or remote learning. All right? Now, members of the board, what I see on my screen is the presentation, and I will gladly, let me just move my screens if I can. I appreciate everyone's patience. If anyone, I've got the board members on my screen as well. Got a couple monitors. Board members, feel free to interrupt as needed. We'll have this conversation, okay? Some will be a little repeat, some will be new. Slide 1. We always remind everybody the mission of North Shore School District 112, a community partnership committed to a world-class education, is to nurture every child to become an inspired learner, a well-rounded individual, and a contributing member of a global community by striving for excellence within an environment that fosters innovation, respect, engagement, and intellectual inquiry. And we can add during this time, anywhere. We are, today is April 7th, and there's quite a bit that's happened since March 17th, and we're proud to share that with the board. Basically, we're bringing you up to speed as to what's been going on. Our 4 priorities have been crystal clear, and I think people understand them. Feed and care for our families and children. A quarter of our families are qualified for free and reduced lunch, or at the poverty level, very, very food insecure and needy. Care for our 535 staff members. A theme that you'll hear this evening is we're not teaching electronically, we're not providing distance learning, we're not providing correspondence courses. We're teaching at home in your homes during a public health crisis where people are dying. So again, not to be macabre or melodramatic, this is an unusual experience. And our 4th priority, learning, is up and running. We'll talk about that. We're proud of our government cooperation, and there's some next steps as well. So I mentioned what those priorities have been. We've also been undertaking a great deal of communication to our community especially. We know these emails are long. We understand. And we know that this week especially, you're getting a lot of communications. We simply ask for grace, patience, flexibility, and understanding, and realize we are sorting this out and we're getting used to what this reality is, and we'll calm it down, and we'll also be more crisp and concise and use chunking. However, it is incumbent upon you to read what we've written and really immerse yourself in it and let us know if you have questions. We'll be mindful of the amount and the volume and the frequency. We ask you to please be mindful of the great care and effort that we're putting into it as well. All right, members of the board, we are here to inform, focus, respond, and share. We continue, like the rest of our state, nation, and world, putting the highest attention to the COVID-19 public health crisis. We're in this situation because of a pandemic. We are controlling what we can control. We're remotely working. We've got virtual meetings. We're communicating often. We're responding in as timely a fashion as possible to respond to questions from the community inside and out. And we are planning for the implementation of e-learning. Today is day 2 of District 112 e-learning. We are reviewing and receiving information from the State Board of Ed, the governor, and we're partnering with many, many agencies. Ultimately, the reason the governor ordered a stay at home and the reason that we ordered the closure is to flatten the curve. The curve is of people dying from COVID-19 or being hospitalized. So we're grateful to our communities for being very aggressive. The mayor of Highland Park, the mayor of Highwood are publicly communicating. We're working with our sister governments. We've had a skeleton crew on site, and we're very cautious between April 9th and 17th. The upcoming spike or peak, we are going to severely limit that and really secure our facilities and protect our employees, priority 2. We're proud that we have a voice on the State Board of Education's advisory groups and the State Superintendent Association on the governor's SWAT team. I'm so proud of the incredible lift our teachers, our support personnel, our administrators, our community at large, our board, the D112 leadership has undertaken since March 17th. Dr. Ryan, Dr. Kimmelman, Mrs. Rose, Mr. Williams, our 5 current coaches, the 2 coaches to be, Jeremy Wickham, and many, many others, Marianne Diaz, Guy Schumacher, the list goes on, have really, really stepped up. Then we want to explain to you what e-learning is going to look like, what it looks like now, what it's going to look like next couple weeks. So what's happened since March 17th? It seems like a year ago. Here on this calendar, what we're doing to highlight for you members of the board and members of the community in this pink or red is just, reprising what's going on. Thursday night, March 12th, we had a special board meeting, and with the consent of the board and the administration, I ordered the schools closed. We had 3 very passionate parents speak to us, 2 are medical doctors. We looked at the data, we made the decision, boom, we've been right decision, absolutely. The 13th, Friday the 13th, we had what's called an emergency day. In the old way of thinking, an emergency day is like a snow day. And our main focus was making sure we can get food distribution for our children and families the following week, 16, 17, 18, and 19, and also following spring break. We did all that. Thank you, Ann Flanagan-Bassey and the extreme heroes at Moraine Township for helping during spring break and beyond. The 16th was an emergency day, and when we had food distribution going forward, we were thinking about care and concern for our employees, and we thought, wait a minute, we've got parent-teacher conferences, no one's coming in, we've got to get conferences running. So for the first time ever, and thanks to the cooperation and partnership of our labor unions, we were able to run teleconferences on the 19th and 20th. The governor declared on the 13th Act of God Days, which has a very specific technical declaration, the 17th through 30th. For us, the 20th through 29th was spring break, so we really were under Act of God on the 17th and 18th. So during spring break, labor union met with us, leadership, thank you leaders, coaches met, members of the administrative team under Dr. Ryan's leadership met, and went over the e-learning plan, which had been approved by the regional office on the 16th of March, approved by our board on the 17th of March. Let that sink in for a sec. And then said, what are we going to do March 30th through whenever we go back? And what we did is we put in the hands of our families EduSeer online learning on the 18th. So even though it was spring break, since it really was spring fake because people really couldn't travel, we had learning modules, aligned standards in the hands of our students on the 18th, on the 3rd day of our closure. I'm real proud of our staff for doing that. Then the State Board of Education allowed for us to have 5 remote planning days. We took advantage of all 5 of them last week. And we also had social emotional check-ins that began with our students. We also had Zoom professional learning and development, and we had Seesaw professional learning and development. April 6th was yesterday. Yesterday was the first day of remote learning in North Shore School District 112. For 2 weeks, our students have had access to standards-aligned curriculum, self-paced, as well as some of our District 112 guaranteed and viable curriculum materials. The remote learning is on day 2. The schedule will change next week. Dr. Ryan and Colleen will talk about it. The governor's closed the state to April 30th. We'll continue to address that as we move on. We, from March 16th through April 3rd, we served 3,258 meals. Kudos Ginger Brown, Director of Fiscal Services and Food Services, and Chris Wildman, Chief Financial Officer, and our partners at Organic Life, and Kevin Lieb, Director of Operations, Facilities Transportation, and the heroes in the Facility and Operations, Buildings and Grounds Department, and Organic Life's Food Service. We serve about 500 meals a day. We have phone parent-teacher conferences the 19th and 20th. We also arranged to have 1,137 kindergarten, first, and second grade students who've never had our devices at home ever. We arranged to distribute those. We distributed 1,050 in one day. We also are very proud, especially in our Highland Park and Highwood arts and musical culture. We have a really thriving art, music, band, orchestra, choral program. We also have musical instruments picked up on April 3rd, and they'll be picked up again on April 8th. We also distributed 326 of our 426 new staff teacher MacBook Airs that we purchased and that can support remote learning. The previous devices were almost a decade old. Our future is now. We're leading with passion, alacrity, coherence, and intensity. Very proud of our teams. Mentioning the grab-and-go meals, Chris and Ginger and Nicholas and so many others keeping this out. Thank you to the City of Highland Park, the Township of Moraine, the Park District for sharing our messages. We're also providing food for the Deerfield Public Schools because we work in partnership with our other organizations. These meals are available to anyone between the ages really of 3 and 18 to grab and go breakfast and lunch Monday through Friday on days of the public school calendar from 10 a.m. to noon in the back of Oak Terrace. We're here to help. Again, 1,629 breakfasts and ironically 1,629 lunches were distributed between 3/16 and 4/3, March 16th and April 3rd. The State Board of Education relaxed their rules, and we're showing you a beautiful picture of our beautiful food distribution folks. Now they're wearing masks and gloves. They have gloves in that picture, but things are changing every day. Can't thank enough Moraine Township, also the 112 Education Foundation, also the Highland Park Community Foundation. My goodness, we're blessed in this town and in these towns we serve to have such incredible people and generosity. Dr. Schrader, why don't you, I'll take a breath and see if our board members have any questions, or if I'll let you take off in priority 2, you'll just tell me when to click. Board members. Monica, let's go.
I'm sorry, I was about to just jump in real quickly and second the thank yous to the Community Foundation, the District 112 Foundation, and Moraine Township for stepping up and not just helping us to take care of these kids and families who are part of our 112 community, but stepping up for all sorts of other local needs in the last few weeks. I've been in contact with all of them, and they've been absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic. Can't say it enough. Absolutely agree. Dr. Schrader, I'm going to unmute you so everyone can hear you because your presentations are better when we can hear you.
Okay, terrific. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so priority 2, really, truly, it's to focus on the needs of our staff and our students. We have over 4,500 people, and sometimes people forget we're a really large organization. And it's really important to kind of think about our why. Why are we here today? When we started the 1920 school year, we never imagined to be working at home and educating our kids from our homes. It's something that honestly, like I was reflecting on today, it's a little overwhelming when you think about it. When I went into education, you always, knew you looked at the school calendar and you saw those emergency days that were kind of meant for snow days, or in our district, sometimes heat days, right? But no one would have ever thought that we would extend that to weeks on end. So really our why is we're really trying to save lives. And as Dr. Lewfeld mentioned, we're not trying to be dramatic, we're really flattening the curve. So our how is through remote learning. And as Dr. Lewfeld mentioned, we really had to roll up our sleeves and come up with a plan really quickly. And our process is really truly, it's to not only educate our kids, not just academically, but there's a big social emotional component. And I'm sure for those of you that are parents at home, our staff members, you're now juggling your own work life, becoming a teacher at home. Some people joke that they're now the lunch ladies as well. You're juggling so many different roles. This is not what we expected, but we want to come out of this better together. So Mike, if you could go to the next slide. So here's our nice little picture. Okay, next slide. Okay, so as Mike had mentioned, we had sent home our staff, and we really have been focused on making sure that we're keeping people safe. Sometimes we get emails of, oh, I left my iPad, oh, can my child, pick up an instrument? And we're really trying to limit those interactions, following not just the governor, but our local mayors as well. Truly, our team, the personnel team, has been rallying around staff members who have been sick, or the family members who have fallen sick. And we've been connecting with them via phone, via email, and making sure that they have the support of the Employee Assistance Program, but also availability of sick days when needed. Okay, next slide. Truly, this is an opportunity, as Simon Sinek mentioned in his book, Together We Are Better. And something that we can really wrap our minds around is that this is a journey that no one should travel alone. And really, we have been working really well with both labor unions, with our leadership team, to try to figure out how do we do our best at educating our kids from our homes. So as I mentioned in his book, he talks about going alone or going together. And it's really scary when you think about going alone. This morning I woke up and it was kind of, weighed on me to think that we're going to be in our homes till at least April 30th. And what is that going to look like? And for our 8th graders, what does that mean? What does the end of the year look like? But I know that when we work together, we're able to support all of our students and our staff. And that's something that we've been focusing on. So coming up for workload plans is not the easiest. We're in a people industry. So here we are, we're coming up with remote learning, but we're also coming up with remote working for paraprofessionals. We employ many paraprofessionals that we deeply care about. And we had to think about, like, what would that look like at home? A lot of our parapros support our special education programs, our dual language programs. So thank goodness that we have Dr. Guy Schumacher, Ms. Patty Similian, and Dr. Holly Colleen have really worked on a really thoughtful plan where they're able to engage in some online modules around bettering their education around special education or dual language, and even around wellness. As many of you have heard, we've launched this Happiness Advantage project throughout our district, and many of them are going to engage in a virtual book chat as well. But it was something that we didn't think about, at the beginning of the year. How do you engage some of our employees that really, truly, their jobs depend on supporting our kids? So I really have to appreciate everything that they've put into coming up with these plans. So maintaining the safe, healthy, and wellness of our staff and students is paramount. We've been communicating a lot with our staff. We've been checking in a lot with them. I know, for example, Mike and I engaged in 20 Zoom meetings on Friday alone. Many of our principals are checking in with their staff. Many of the teachers are checking in with their students. We connect in so many different ways. Fortunately, we are a society that has so many different technological devices and tools. So beyond phone, we're texting, we're emailing. We use an application called Voxer, so we could talk via group chats, basically, on Voxer. We're clearly using Zoom. We use Twitter. I know I post a question every morning. You could see by that adorable picture, so many of our staff are trying to engage our students in, like, spirit days, which have been really fun. And obviously we've been engaging the larger professional learning network. We have a hashtag 112leads, and if you aren't familiar with Twitter, you could still just search that on Google, and it's great to see all the posts. Hashtag Illinois Schools Step Up. That's the schools across the state. So many of our staffs have really risen to this rare occasion. And then we have hashtag All in Illinois, which is the hashtag launched by our governor to support the shelter in place. So this is an opportunity for all of us to persevere. At the end of this long journey, we want to come out of this better together. We want to be able to walk out of here saying that we have supported our staff, supported our students, supported our families. There is no playbook for what we are doing. We did not go into education to become remote educators. I never thought that this is something that I would engage in. In fact, today I was kind of missing just those interactions of, making coffee in Mike's office and seeing my colleagues and walking by someone's desk and chatting. This isn't what we went into this field for, but we are learning from this, and it's an opportunity. And some people are even sharing stories about the amazing things that their kids are doing. I mean, when will you ever get to see some of our kids' bedrooms, and they're doing kind of show and tells, and we're able to meet their pets, and we're able to meet their family members. I mean, it's really, really fun. Some of the things that we've learned about our kids in different ways through this experience. So, you know, what our goals are, we hope that we walk out of this as a better organization than when we first walked into this. A lot of people are, you know, contacting us, which is great. Just to kind of share again, you could still contact your teachers, your principals. Mike's email is up on the screen. Kevin Ryan, our assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, Holly Colleen, assistant superintendent for student services, Chris Wildman, our chief financial officer. Feel free to reach out if you need any support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schrader. Members of the board, may I go on to priority 3? So thank you, Nicholas Glenn, Director of Communications, who's here obviously on board, for keeping our website and web pages updated. We have Staying Healthy in District 112, which is also a repository of communication. We have the District 112 mobile app. Many of you have downloaded it, and you probably are getting alerts because we can send short blasts and information right to that app. Facebook, some of you may be watching right now live on our Facebook District 112 page. We have pages for our schools. We use Twitter at NSSD112 is our Twitter handle. As Dr. Schrader mentioned, 112 Leads is our school district hashtag, and Illinois School Step Up is a new hashtag right now. All of our schools across our state are stepping up. We have an e-newsletter, an email blast. If you ever are missing it, you send Nicholas an email, he'll get you right back on there. And we're using video to communicate as well. You know, we've been all in sharing information with you. As I mentioned at the top of the hour and in my initial remarks, we are aware, and I am aware, there's some density and thickness in these communications, and we're sensitive to it. This is an unusual event. We've got to get a lot of information out there. We've been sending you letters to all with respect to this: February, March, April. We've got the link, Staying Healthy in 112. We also have regular meetings with the cities of Highland Park and Highwood, reps from police and library, also Lake Forest, school districts in the area, park districts in the area, our township here in Moraine, and also West Deerfield. The Lake County Health Department has a dedicated liaison to superintendents, and we've got the Lake County Superintendent Group. We are reviewing Centers for Disease Control, CDC info, Illinois Department of Public Health, Lake County Department of Public Health, watching the governor's press briefings daily, staying in touch with everything that's going on. We also know that our, you know, just the whole area has been sharing information. You've probably seen us with an uptick of sharing and amplifying the messages of our foundations, of our cities, of our park districts. We're all trying to get the word out. And in addition, we're heeding the state of emergency that was declared by Mayor Rotering, and we've closed our properties. There's no congregation of people on any school properties. They're closed until they're not. State Board of Education has also been communicating with us on a daily and nightly basis as well. We've got a webinar every hour on helping students with special needs, students who are gifted and talented, students who are everywhere else on the spectrum, working remotely, and everything. We're learning and taking up on it. Now, yesterday was day 1 of e-learning. However, just to repeat, we've had learning and curricular materials in the hands of our students since March 18th. So I'm real proud of Dr. Ryan. Right now, he's going to take the lead on priority 4, and Dr. Colleen will join him. Dr. Ryan, just tell me when to go to the next slide, please.
Sure. This has been a crazy few weeks, unprecedented, really, when you think about it. You know, trying to get the staff ready for a different type of learning that they probably never imagined they had to do, you know, themselves, leading kids from the ages of, 4 into, ages of 13, 14 online as opposed to in person. So just a complete mind shift in what we've had to do. So really trying to get our staff prepared over the last several weeks, thinking through, all these days. We had those 2 emergency days, which we're making up on this Friday and this Monday, so they really don't count. And then we had 3 days of really EduSeer, that self-paced learning. And then we had Thursday and Friday, which were parent conferences, and then we had spring break. So we came out of spring break and really then focused on trying to get our staff prepared for this idea of e-learning and what it could look like, and really doing a lot of different things to help them get prepared in order to feel confident and comfortable in doing something that they've never really had to do before. We talk about defining and clarifying what does e-learning look like for in District 112, and really sharing information regarding the development and delivery of e-learning. What does it look like to e-learn? And we've done a lot this last several months, looking at the instructional framework and really going back to what are best practices in the classroom, but not only what are best practices in the classroom, but what are best practices when we're trying to teach our kids online, and being on a, on a computer screen and trying to do like a lecture type thing is not really what's best for kids. So it's trying to figure out how do we chunk this information to make it powerful for students, and really thinking about our students from an equity lens in an e-learning context, and trying to address the needs of our students who not all of them have internet at home, not all of them had the devices at home at the time that we closed school. So trying to get devices in kids' hands, trying to get internet in kids' hands, thinking through those things. And just trying to provide the supports for our teachers. Last night, I just want to shout out to my department, Lindsay Rose, Leah Kimmelman, Jason Williams, and our coaches who have been phenomenal. Last night, our elementary coaches, myself, so Vanessa Reeks, Becky Purse, Enrique Castro, myself, Jeremy Wickham, we were on a Zoom until 11 o'clock at night, trying to figure out for this morning, some last minute issues came up with K2 iPads, and trying to figure out, how do we make this work at 9 a.m. in the morning, the next morning, and so just the amount of time and effort that all of them have put in, I just want to thank them and just, say this, it couldn't have been done without all of their extra effort and work. Next slide, Mike, if you don't mind. All right. So, and just thinking about like where we are, we're all in this together. We need to collaborate. I've had 2 meetings or 3 meetings, 2 different K2 meetings on Zoom with approximately one, we had about 60 teachers. The other, we had about 30 teachers, on Friday and Monday, trying to talk through like, what does learning look like for our youngest kids? Today, as a team, we met with our 3-5 teachers. Tomorrow, we're meeting with our 6-8 teachers, all via Zoom, trying to listen to some of the struggles that they have, trying to problem solve, trying to let them know the why behind some of the things that we're doing, and giving them the tools and the support that they need to be successful. We need to be flexible. I once heard that it's really good to be, an unlearning leader. I don't know where I might have heard that before. I think I've read it in a couple places, but it's never been more true than in these times, because things are changed and are so different than anything we've ever experienced before in our lives. And we have to assume everyone has good intentions. We sent out information to parents this weekend, a lot of information to parents. I know some of them feel overwhelmed, but we feel like we want to be upfront and communicate as much as possible. We're learning from the communication. We're trying to be more clear and concise, but knowing that some parents are frustrated, and they're frustrated for different reasons. Some parents are upset because we're trying to do e-learning, right? And they don't know how to support their kids, and they're having a difficult time. Some parents are upset because, they want their kids to be busy all day long so that, they can continue on some of their jobs and things. So they want things for kids to keep the kids busy and continue that learning. So we have this wide spectrum of things, which is, we're trying to meet the needs of everybody. And so when we get some of these emails where, parents may be upset for some, one reason or another, is just understanding that this is a stressful time for everyone. It's just stressful time for our teachers, for our staff, for our admin. I talked to the teachers today, and it's like, we talked about how it's like drinking water from a fire hose, right? Things are coming at us so fast. We're trying to adjust on a minutely basis. We come up with a plan, and we got to be flexible enough to change that plan, because you know, things are changing by the minute, and you know, what we put in place, we try, and then we start talking more and more people, and we realize, oh my gosh, we have to shift because what we originally thought would work may not work. And so, you know, we've had to be more flexible than we've ever had to be in our lives, and we're willing to adjust as a school district. You know, the teachers have been amazing as far as, you know, taking the changes in stride, you know, suggesting changes. It's been great, and we continue to inspire, innovate, engage in what we're doing. All right, next slide, Mike, if we could. So, you know, really a summary of the e-learning timeline. When you think about March 13th and 16th, like I talked about, well, those emergency days are made up on April 10th and 13th, this Friday and Monday. March 17th, we had electronic and paper packets in math, ELA, SLA that were provided to all students across the district, pre-K-8. We got an e-learning plan approved by the Board of Ed. And I just want to remind everyone, because some parents are like, why didn't you have this in place to begin with? E-learning plan were meant for 5 snow days, up to 5 snow days. You know, when you look across the state and the things that people did with e-learning, it wasn't to the where we are now, you know, with teachers instructing kids on Zoom and all those things. It was really just more like choice boards, like, hey, in PE, do 20 jumping jacks, like, you know, read a story. Like, I mean, there were just all these things that weren't really aligned to standards, and knowing that potentially we're out the rest of the year, and that we have to get our kids ready to be ready to go at the next grade level, you know, and that it's going to be an extended period that we're out, and it's not just a snow day that we're, you know, potentially making up at the end of the year. We were focusing on getting a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We were focused on, you know, putting in an instructional framework with our teachers. To us, we would rather have taken the 5 extra days at the end of the year and provide high quality education to our kids than to give them a choice board for 5 days, you know. But obviously times have changed. The pandemic happened, and we've had to shift and change what we're doing. And our focus has been on how do we give kids the highest quality education possible in this new environment, which, you know, it's new for all of us, and it's really interesting. In my own house, I've got a college kid who was brought home. I got 2 high school kids, and it, you know, people are talking about how it looks in 112. I'm going to tell you where it doesn't. You know, we're trying our best. It's messy at the college level, it's messy at the high school level, and it's messy at the elementary level. You know, in some ways it's easier to teach a college kid who's 18 years old to 21 years old, you know, online than it is to teach a 5-year-old online. You know, so, you know, we have to take all of this into account and really just think through about everything that's going on, and really have compassion and trust in the district for what we're doing. You know, March 18th, we started the Imagine Learning and Eduseer, just to get kids, really wasn't anything more than to keep kids' mind in an education sort of frame, right? Like, so that we didn't have sort of a summer slide, you know, typically, you know, we didn't want this time where kids weren't engaged mentally during this time period. We didn't want any regression. So we started this Eduseer and Imagine Learning, so we could then move into spring break, come up with a plan to then start March 30th through April 3rd to really work with our teachers. You know, we started that social emotional check-ins that week. We had Imagine Learning and Eduseer continued. We had professional development, you know, up and down the board for our teachers to kind of give them the tools that they needed to be successful. And then April 6th, we rolled out that e-learning plan. Next slide, Mike. So we got that e-learning mindset, you know, where it's really difficult to think about it, because e-learning is not replicating a traditional school day in any way possible. You know, it's completely different. You know, when you think about it, you know, we talk about the instructional framework, and we talk about best practice, and you know, one of the big things that as a staff we've really had PD around over the last couple months is around this idea around chunking content, you know, like not lecturing, but having direct instruction that was age appropriate, you know, depending on a student's age, you know, no more than 5 to 10 minutes of direct instruction, and then chunking that instruction to make sure that that kids understand, have time to process, have time to record, what they've learned. And so I know a lot of parents are like, oh, our teachers should just teach on Zoom the entire time. Well, it doesn't work that way, because that's just lecturing, and kids aren't learning from that. They don't have time to process. They don't have time to record their thinking. They don't have time to talk to other students to help them have a deeper understanding of what they learn. And so we have to be mindful of that e-learning is not traditional, not a traditional school day. So we've got to wipe that from our minds. And thinking about e-learning in the sense that, how do we support our learners who are across the board? How do we support the kids who are struggling and need scaffolding to just meet grade level standards? And how do we support the kids who already know and meet grade level standards? And how do we extend that learning for them in this new environment? And so it's really about being flexible, being understanding, and also really understanding that simplicity is the key to it all, right? Not get crazy and have all these, bells and whistles and fireworks. It's about, what are the standards our kids need to know, and make sure they have a deep understanding of what those standards are, those building blocks to help them be successful at the next grade level. We're trying to keep tasks simple with easy to understand instruction and visuals. The first 2 weeks, our coaches did a phenomenal job of preparing and creating lessons as a model for teachers as they move forward, which is what we're rolling out now. I already talked about the digestible chunks. And we want to use or create a clear and predictable framework. Parents have asked for, it's interesting, I go back to what I said earlier. Some parents are asking for a lot of flexibility, and other parents are asking for structure. I need structure in my life because I need my kids to be doing this at this particular time, because I have my own life events going on that, I'm working, I'm doing these things. So I need my kids to be focused on school where they don't need my support. And then I have other people who are saying, I need flexibility so I can support my kids at home, because they're not really understanding this. And I've got to work through this with them and help them be as successful as possible. So it's just, it varies for everybody. Next slide, Mike. So really our goal is to support student learning without overwhelming home life. That's really been a big key. You've heard us talk about, we've got to take care of Maslow's needs, like the needs of kids before we think about, Bloom and learning continuums. We have to make sure that kids are fed, that kids are mentally prepared, that kids feel safe and comfortable and confident in order to learn. Otherwise, learning won't take place. We got to remember that some families may be experiencing additional stress, financial uncertainty, loss of employment, health concerns. I mean, we have own staff members whose, husbands and wives have been called active duty, during this time, to be sent across the country to help others in need. And now they're home alone with their own children, trying to manage everything that's going on in their household. So it's just, everybody needs to understand how difficult this is on all families, and how it impacts everybody differently. And just because you feel like your family is set, your family is secure, it doesn't mean that the rest of the families out there are like that. And so it's being mindful. So we got this professional learning going. So the slide you see up there now is really the professional learning calendar that we put forth last week, just showing all the different things that we had available. We had Zoom master Dr. Mike Lubefeld, who worked with our staff on teaching them the intricacies of Zoom. We had teachers, who stepped up and really helped with Seesaw and training Seesaw for us. We had Otis, the learning management system that we're using. They're professionals who were online with us and did webinars to help our teachers learn how to use Otis. Really this learning management platform that, I think the next slide we kind of talk more about, Mike, which really gives parents a central place to go. So it's a place for teachers to take attendance, for teachers to put an announcement, like a class board, like here's what's going on. I hope you're doing well. Here are my Zoom links. and where they can post their lessons. So if a parent has multiple children in the district, whether they're, say grade 5, middle school, it's one-stop shop. The parent can click, go into Otis, click on their child, and the night before they could start to figure out, okay, how am I going to support my kid on the next day? So, that's what why we've moved to like a singular learning management system, which is Otis for our district, so that we can do these things and support our parents. At our K-5 area, our K-5 arena, pre-K-5, they're using Seesaw. First parents go to Otis, kids go to Otis, and then from there it'll tell them to go to different places in order to find out what they need to do for the day. It may be in Seesaw. Seesaw is another example of things that are going on. Keep in mind also guidelines for ISB. Some parents have asked that we teach from 7:45 to 3 o'clock every day, and we run the bell schedule like we do at the middle school. But we have to understand, like, this is different, and ISB came out with guidelines and really like what's best for kids. And so, they had a group of educators across the state that came together and kind of put together this model of, hey, these are the minimum and maximums that we feel like kids should be doing it, from an e-learning standpoint on a daily basis. So knowing that even at grades 6 to 8, it's typically the range is anywhere from 90 to 180 minutes max. And so when you look at from a middle school perspective, a kid has 7 to 8 classes. There's 9 periods in a day, but they have a lunch, and so, they've got 8 other classes divided by the 180 minutes. You're talking somewhere roughly between 20 to 25 minutes, of instruction per class, before the experts and the guidelines say that it's going to be too overwhelming for a kid. So we have to think about that as we schedule, and then we move down to like grading and attendance. As a district, we've decided under ISB guidance that we were just going to do either a pass or an incomplete. We weren't going to do, D's and F's, at all. Everything was just going to be pass or incomplete, because we don't know what kids' lives are like at home, what their situations are, what their parents are doing, what kind of support they have at home. And so really, this schooling, to be honest, is more about making sure our kids are connected socially, and that their mental well-being is taken care of, and that they're capable of just being in a good place from a social emotional standpoint. So, we've got that guidelines as far as just the attendance also, where it's just recorded on the day, whether they've attended like a Zoom session or turned in something. It's really like if a kid doesn't turn in or doesn't turn in an assignment or doesn't show up on a Zoom, then those teachers are going to reach out to those families and do a check-in and say like, hey, is everything going on? Are your kids okay? So elementary, week of April 6th through 10th, that schedule's up there on the screen now. We've got 9 to 10 office hours where teachers, will pop in on a social emotional check-in. They'll kind of tell their class like, hey, this is what we're going to do today on Zoom. And then they're just there to kind of help kids answer questions for kids. Then from 10 to 2, the kids are really going to be doing the work and then submitting it, and teachers are going to give feedback, meaningful feedback to kids during that 10 to 2 time period. And then there's more office hours from 1 to 2. And then once again, other time for kids to work and teachers to respond and reflect, about student work, to give them feedback on that work. And then on Fridays, they'll do a social emotional check-in. Teachers will, in the morning, early on, sometime between the hours of 9 and 10. And then the rest of the day, those teachers will be collaborating on like, all right, what is it we need to do to meet the needs of all our kids? Let's talk to our special ed teachers. Let's talk to our ALO, our extended learning teachers. Let's talk to our EL teachers. Let's all come together and figure out how we're going to support all these different learners. And so kids will be learning on that day. It'll probably be a lot more like review on that day for kids. Teachers won't be available after 10 o'clock because they'll be focused on, what they need to do moving forward for the following week. But kids will still have assignments that are assigned during that time period. So if we go to elementary week 2, Sorry, in week one, we actually broke it up. If I started at week one, we did a slow rollout. I wanted to mention that too, which I'm actually, after a meeting with my the third through fifth grade teachers today, we had a Zoom at 2:00. They talked about how appreciative they were that we did a slow rollout, in the sense that today was ELA and SLA only, because they're able to work out the kinks of everything we did, on day one. I talked about how last night we were on a Zoom until 11 trying to fix everything. And even after it was fixed, there were still some other issues during the day that we were able to address. And this slow rollout really allowed us the flexibility to do that. So today was ELA and SLA. Tomorrow is math. On Thursday is science and social studies. And then Friday is going to be like PE and arts and music. Kind of those specials roll out. Next week, it'll be all subject, it'll be ELA, SLA, and math every day. And then depending on the grade level, depending on the teacher, there might be like a science project to do for the week or a social studies project to do for the week. But those won't be assigned every day. Really, the main focus will be ELA, SLA, and math. And then we go to the middle school, week one this week. One of the things we heard about is we came up with a schedule because teachers were competing. Content area teachers were holding Zoom classes, and a math teacher might hold a Zoom class at 9 a.m. And then it turned out that social studies teacher was holding a Zoom class at 9 a.m. And now kids had to be at two different Zooms exactly at the same time. So we tried to figure out a schedule that really would lend itself to supporting student learning. And so, this week teachers are checking in by advisory, basically Monday through Friday between 9 and 10 to make sure kids are okay. And then there are designated times that teachers, so like your period 1 class, period 2, period 3 on Monday, between those times that you see on the screen are times for kids to check in, time for teachers to support student needs in those time periods. So there's no overlap. We've got an online drop-in from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3, we have like optional small group and individual student supports that occur during that time. Starting April 13th, at the middle school, you'll see Northwood's schedule. The next one will be Edgewood's schedule. But starting next week, we're going to have what we call synchronous and asynchronous learning going on at the same time. So teachers, like period 1, all teachers will be Zooming with their classes starting next week between 10 and 10:30. It changes based on the building because we tried to spread out like where kids had lunch and specials and things of that nature. So we tried to even it out as much as possible so that they had at least 2 instructional classes each day versus, having, potentially having like a lunch and a free period, whatever that may be. We try to even it out for students so that there's at least 2 instructional days each thing. And then you see Edgewood's schedule also. And then we have band, orchestra, and chorus. They can be pulled during certain times based on that schedule. But next week will really be like, teachers, a teacher will Zoom in 3 times a week, basically 3 days a week with each of their class periods to provide either, that direct instruction, that chunking, the support that students may need.
Sorry, I needed to unmute myself. Hello. Okay, so we wanted to touch on the individualized remote learning plans for our students who have individual education plans or receive special education services through 112. And so case managers and so special education teachers, speech and language pathologists, social workers, all of our service providers who provide services for our special education students have been checking in, collaborating with one another, and checking in with families on how they can, and I want to be real clear, we're not replicating services in school, and I think that's been mentioned many times, but how we can support students in their individual education program goals so that we can either maintain or move forward with many of the goals and keep that momentum moving. So case managers and service providers will be doing this through Zoom check-ins, providing lessons, so potentially Imagine Learning. We've got some Success Maker and ILET, so different programs and platforms that they're using, and providing resources. And so sometimes they're, talking with a parent, maybe a speech pathologist is calling home and giving a parent some quick instructions on how they can work with their child to provide the prompting or some of the language goals, for example. So they're working really hard on that this week, meeting with families virtually and supporting students really in a real wraparound service. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep, next slide. So we just wanted to highlight, do you want Chris? Go ahead. We just wanted to highlight the construction that's continuing at Northwood. Everyone is really excited about it. We've got the cameras up and these are some pictures. So we're excited to keep it moving. And
Awesome.
Chris, do you have anything? Okay, go ahead. Next one.
Chris, do you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to say that is a picture of the Learning Commons that used to be the that used to be the area that the people could walk on, and now it's a new building. So that's literally new construction in the center of the school. So it's amazing that it's up. The steel's up. The roof is obviously next, and it's a real building that's taking shape. It's amazing that it's continuing with everything that's going on. But what we're talking about right now, it's continuing, and we're continuing the construction at Northwood.
Thank you all.
And then,
Holly?
I was going to just talk about this one. And then as Dr. Liebenfeld has mentioned earlier, this is one great way to get communications from North Shore School District 112. So we encourage you to download our app, and there's the link to do so, as well as follow #112leads. And that brings us, I think, to questions or comments from the board.
I've got a question. How's attendance been?
So attendance is interesting, because it's not attendance in the traditional sense, because, if we have students who are, for some instances, parents are working, right? And some of the older kids are having to watch the younger kids and things of that nature, and may not have the opportunity to attend some of these check-in sessions that we have. So we do have that flexibility piece, which is why attendance is taken off of, those Zoom recordings, but it's also taken off of like work that's turned in, which teachers will then follow up later, but, ultimately, so far from what I could tell, kids are, if they're not in the Zoom, they're at least checking in, through Otis, and, and they're available, I don't have an exact attendance number because we started officially taking attendance yesterday. To give you a number, today wouldn't necessarily be fair. I think down the line, we'd have better data, more consistent data of what it looks like on a daily basis.
Thanks.
Can I build on what Art asked? This is Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely, perfectly.
So I wanted to find out if we have a way of knowing that all families have responded, that we don't have any families that have just kind of fallen off the contact. That do we have a way to verify that everyone is engaged?
Yeah, how
Sure.
we're doing that, once again, is through those Zoom meetings, through correspondence between teachers and students. That, what we've instructed all the teachers to do is and the building admin is to say, you've got to keep track of this every day. If a kid, if you're not hearing from a student on a daily basis, after a couple of days, you need to reach out and you need to do a check-in with that family to make sure that everything's okay. That's really the only way we can do it at this point in time. And it's really, our teachers have been phenomenal. They're really on board with doing that process and reaching out to families that or students that haven't checked in yet. But for the most part, like I said, this is day 2. Yesterday was the initial sort of check-in from an elementary level, as far as social emotional, saying this is how the rollout's going to be. Today was really the first day of seeing it, our kids turning in work. And if they don't turn it in today, are they turning it in tomorrow? Because they may not have finished it today. But if we don't see it, then the teachers are going to follow up with those students and those families.
Sure.
And the social workers are also
Oh, go-
available.
Yes.
So
can
social
I-
workers, go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
Sure. Let me, so in terms of the buildings, they've been really wonderful. I've had a couple principals reach out to me just in terms of they can't get a hold of a family. And so we've
Right.
found alternate ways to get a hold of families. So to your point, we are making sure that all families and their well-being is taken care of if we're not hearing from them. So
Thank you.
absolutely.
Other board member comments or questions?
Yeah, I have one, and I hesitate to even raise it because I think you guys are doing a great job, and you're really, people use the metaphor you're building the airplane while you're flying it. But as you read stories about e-learning and remote learning, obviously you've got some students at home who have parents who are available, to help them more. To provide additional supports. You have some parents who just can't do that, and it seems to me, and this is again not there's a question coming, as we go through the next couple of weeks, and obviously our objective is the kids are learning and they're getting ready for the next grade. Is there any thought about additional resources, or is there a need for additional resources? If we start to see some of these students, not making the progress that we'd like to see them make, are there some thoughts? Are you guys starting to think about that in terms of how we can avoid?
I'm going to answer that, Mr. Jenks. We're in day 2, so we appreciate having this conversation April 21st and May 5th. We can have it every time we gather together. But I'm also going to remind of the board and the community that we have EduShare, which is at least 4 standards-aligned online courses that are self-paced, that our families are more than welcome to and encouraged to have their children continue to pursue, in addition to the remote learning that we provide. So my short answer is we've already provided that. The longer answer is today I'm not going to, I'm not going to gag, Drs. Ryan or Colleen, they can speak for themselves, but I'll say this is day 2, and in context, we're going to be meeting again April 21st to May 5th. With that, Drs. Ryan and Colleen are welcome to speak. I'm really proud of what we've got put together. We also go from having 10 principals to having 4,000 principals.
No, I understand that, Mike, and I know it's a little bit of, as I preface the question, I hesitated to say, and I know it's obviously unfair on day 2, but again, you're having to think as you go through this, you're having to think down the road. This isn't 5 snow days. You're planning for instruction through, hopefully not, but possibly through the end of the year. And it's just something that occurred to me that, that's a challenge down the road potentially.
Right. We've been doing a lot of work with prioritizing, like figuring out, repacing, and looking at the standards that we have left for the rest of the year, and figuring out how do we give the best instruction in this, different environment. But we're also looking at, we've had conversations where we have certain days built into the calendar we call flex days, like where teachers can do review and things of that nature. So next year we've already talked about, like, we may have to take some of those flex days away and have less flex days, and have more, like when we kick off the year, more like review and, making sure that kids have the base that they need to be successful at that next grade level if they didn't get it over this time period. So we've totally looked at adjusting that calendar for next year. We've had those conversations, and it is on the top of our mind. So I mean, it's a great question, and we are thinking about it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
So I've got
from board members.
I've got another question, kind of a little bit along the lines of what Dan was saying. Have we given thought to how to support students kind of at all levels? So like some students who aren't getting it, how do they get extra help? And other students who are doing great and finishing their work, in 10, 15 minutes, and then per class, and then have, lots of time on their hands and have the ability to work on their own. Are teachers encouraged to push out extra work to help those kids get a deeper understanding? How how are we modifying the curriculum or the exercises for students at all levels?
Right. So ultimately, you saw in the schedules how we had those Fridays that were collaborative days for teachers to get together. And that's where all the specialists, you know, the reading specialists, the special education teachers, the EL teachers, the ALO teachers, like that's where they're working together to figure out how do we take the lessons we created and how do we scaffold them for kids who are struggling and how do we extend them for kids who are, you know, easily meeting. You know, once again, we're day 2. Let's keep that in mind. But you know, on Fridays, that's what that time period that, you know, really is about those teachers working together to meet the needs of all our learners. I mean, we are totally cognizant of that, mindful of that. It's a fear of ours, right? Like, you know, how do we get kids who are struggling not frustrated by this new learning environment, and how do we keep kids who are advanced engaged, you know, during this time period? So. And we don't have a great answer for that right now, to be honest with you. You know, I think we're working together collaboratively, trying to figure out plans on how to do that. And I think week by week, we're going to get better at it. You know, like we're going to learn and we're going to make adjustments and change and get feedback, and we're going to get better at it. You know, none of us have done this type of learning environment yet. This is brand new for all of us.
Yeah, I understand, and I applaud what you put in place. It's really unbelievable what you guys have achieved, and I look forward to seeing how it changes over time.
Thank you.
Kevin, I wanted to ask about the dual language program specifically, and I say this, you know, as a dual language parent myself. You know, so much of that program is reliant on sort of the classroom environment and the both languages being engaged in that environment. What are we doing kind of differently for the large percentage of our students who are in the dual language program, and how is the district approaching that?
Yeah, so great question. Lindsay Rose, you know, our director of languages, actually has been meeting with each grade level, you know, via Zoom, and they really have deep conversations around how we're doing that. You know, we have we have a coach who works in the dual language program, Enrique Castro, who's really been vital in creating these first 2 weeks and helping us create SLA lessons and activities that are doing the things that you're asking, you know, about right now. You know, and it's really that those teachers are really focused and collaborating and trying to talk through, like, what does this look like for dual language? How do we best meet our dual language kids? Once again, you know, day 2, we're still trying to figure out. We're trying, we're adjusting, you know, and we're going to improve every day. I promise you that we're going to get better every day.
President Lesko, any additional questions or comments from the board?
None here. I think thank you all very much for that presentation. I thought it was very informative and obviously really, you know, the critical thing going on right now.
Thank you very much.